everyone's like, you're kind of lagging behind, and you're like, I'm just growing into something, and when I emerge, you'll understand. And it's like, okay, well, you're kind of just doing 2d6 damage every turn, so could you pick it up? And you're like, in a couple levels, I'll
Yes.
get there.
And then you emerge as a panda, deflecting arrows off its belly,
Right.
with extra panda arms off its back, punching things 10 feet away.
And everyone's like, okay, yeah, you're
Yeah, that
right.
was
That
worth the
was
wait.
worth it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
did it.
Welcome to Monsters and Multiclass, your Dungeons & Dragons fix. I'm Eliotti.
I'm Jared Bornagle.
I'm Will Milden.
And on this episode, we are taking a look at the Druid Monk. Again, it's part of a Redux series where we're going back on old favorites or old hatreds and re-looking at them, as there's been a lot of changes since we've talked about them, and with fresher eyes.
I love that.
Was that short enough for you, Jared?
This is great. No, I love that.
Right before this, everybody, you must know, he yelled at me for being too verbose last time. And here we are belaboring the point again.
I was directing that myself as well. Thank you. But anyways, so Druid Monk is, I think it falls into the category of one of my favorites. I just love this multi-class. Maybe not for like mechanical reasons, but for a lot of reasons that we'll talk about. Just some cool interactions. And starting off with what druids are, because that's how we usually do these. Druids are nature-based spellcasters. They're the embodiment of nature's resilience, and their cunning and fury. I guess nature's cunning and fury. Often viewed as extensions of nature's will. They take 13 wisdom to multi-class into, and they are full spellcasters. Monks are highly disciplined fighters who have an extreme control over every fiber of their being, stem from a training of mind and body. Take 13 dex and 13 wisdom to multi-class into. So, first thoughts. Ellie, how do you feel about the monk druid? I already expressed mine.
Right. There's a lot of pitfalls with it, but last time we talked about it, we did come up with at least one solid option. Since the Spore Druid was in there, that combined well off of various monk features. And I think it did just get better. We'll definitely talk about it in more detail, but the Astral Monk with Druid could be really cool. I think various forms of it and some other things. But then there's also some new ones, which again, there's bonus action issues, and we could get all into that in the future. So I think there's something there, but you need to be careful on how you craft it. Roleplay wise, I mean, there's no reason they couldn't combine together. There's some neat combinations there.
Yeah, there's something to me about the, like, there's some multi-classes where you look at it and it's like, oh yeah, the direct flavor is just like an obvious overlap. I don't know if there is that direct overlap. Monks don't generally have a nature theme to them, but there's something about the vibe of monks and druids that works for me. Like
there's absolutely no reason a monk couldn't have a nature theme. Like there's not a naturey monk like monastery within 5th edition,
right.
But there's no reason you couldn't flavor one where it's like, yeah, I'm a monk and I'm all about becoming one with nature and
exactly
having a druid aspect to it.
Will, any first thoughts?
Sure. I'll expand on that point a bit to kind of point out that both of these are about a sort of mastery and harmony of nature, the nature within and the nature without. So there is that Zen continuity that you can see through both the classes. But I think my biggest issue with this combination is that you just like go through, especially the subclasses, and you just junk so many of them. It's just there's nothing here.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest problem with it.
Yeah.
Jive's okay. And I think the stat dependency actually isn't too bad, but once again, as a monk, it's always going to be a little bit tough.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is actually one of the few times though where the stat dependency is, I'll say, I don't view it as an issue at all, because for a druid, generally your 3 stats that you're caring about are getting your wisdom up high, getting your dexterity to at least, we'll say, +2, so that you can at least utilize medium armor, and then constitution, because you want to maintain concentration on spells. So,
right.
I mean, making dex need to be like a little bit higher. It's going to be a very focused stat distribution, and maybe your constitution's not going to be out of this world by any means, but asking to have decent dexterity and decent wisdom I mean, that's the monk anyways. So all of
Right,
the issues
exactly.
of the monk's multi-attribute dependence that's already there, it's not exacerbated by this combination in any capacity.
Yeah, there's a certain harmony to it.
Oh.
Mm.
In terms of the naturey subclasses, that's like partially true. There's one subclass that should feel naturey, and that is the Way of the Four Elements. Um, and it doesn't.
No,
The
it
Way of the
doesn't.
Four Elements it's like obviously it's a pull from Buddhist traditions of having water, earth, fire, air. I mean, obviously other cultures, but it's the monk. That's what they're trying to go for. But it gives almost zero flavor to it. Like literally in the description for the Way of the Four Elements, it is just a paltry like 2 sentences. It's like, yeah, this is a monastic tradition that's dedicated to the four elements. Have fun. Get out of here.
Right.
Always very frustrating. So it's one of those that, as Will said, you just are throwing out some subclasses. You're throwing out Way of the Four Elements because it's a horrible class mechanically. But even the flavor, if you like thought it would have any overlap, it's meh, not really. It's not necessary.
No.
So before we get into subclasses too much, just kind of going over some basic mechanical overlaps. We've obviously talked about the dexterity and wisdom. One of the big things for the monks is that is how they end up getting their armor class is their dexterity plus their wisdom plus 10. So again, kind of no mechanical hindrance there, and that is a good way for druids to get good armor class. Usually druids are relying on medium armor as they can't have metal armor or heavy armor. So they, unless they use a shield, generally cap out around like 16, which isn't very impressive in the long term. But, oh, go ahead.
I say, hey, I guess not like such a concern with it. Key points, monks, key points equal
Mm-hmm.
their level, the monk level, and we always complain monks feel like they don't have a lot of key points. So this isn't specifically against an issue against a druid, just multiclassing a monk in general. You need to watch out for that. It's not saying it can't be done, but you really need to manage your key points better.
Yeah, and this is definitely not a multi-class where you're going to have success dipping in both directions. Like a 2-level dip in a druid is fantastic, adds a bunch to your character, doesn't slow down progression terribly. 2-level dip into monk is just like, why did you even bother? You'd get your AC up, and you'd get some uses for your bonus action. Druids have enough uses for their bonus action. They don't need
Yeah,
anything bogging them down there,
right.
and they're rarely attacking in any way. And that's again just kind of another type of issue with the monk and multi-classing with them. It's really hard to justify a small dip into monk.
It is, yeah.
It's that key reliance. I mean, even looking at the good monk subclasses, some of the new ones in Tasha's were honestly, I would call them good classes, but they have the same issue where it's like at level 3, you have a way to use your key. It's like, okay, well, can you give me something that I can do without relying on my key points?
Right.
The answer is no. Too bad.
So I guess to jump into one of those, that Way of the Astral Self,
Mm.
that's one where you spend a key and you could get astral arms off of you and use those to attack when you have those out, and they last for 10 minutes. You could use a wisdom modifier in place of strength to make checks and saving throws. You could also use your wisdom modifier in place of strength or dex to attack and for damage rolls. And the type becomes fortress, is really cool. And your spectral arms are unarmed strikes. So and its reach is greater than 5 feet more than normal. Mechanically, it's really cool, but like I don't know mechanically how well it's going to line up because it takes a key, and then your unarmed strikes go up based on your martial arts die, which is your monk level again. But I love the idea of Circle of the Moon Astral Self Monk because you can shapeshift into and like an animal in like a combat wild shape and have astral arms off of that animal and attack with those. And so you get the benefits of like the tankiness and the extra health of shapeshifting and whatever other abilities they have. while also still being able to utilize the monk things. Because a lot of the monk stuff, it was saying like if you make unarmed attacks or attack with monk weapons, you get your free unarmed attack. Um, and if you wild shape and attack with like a claw or tail or bite, those are not unarmed strikes. Those are considered weapons. They're not classified as an unarmed strike in 5th edition's rules. So that that caused a lot of issues for this multi-class before Tasha's. This is one way that kind of fixes it a bit. Because when you take the attack action, if you have extra attack, you can do one attack with the astral arm and then another attack with whatever's on the beast's stat block. And then because you attacked with an unarmed strike, that satisfies the need for the monk thing where you can then do another unarmed strike.
And how is that? I'm sorry, I might have gotten lost there. How can you take a attack from the wild shape stat block?
So if you take the attack action,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of, and let's say you have extra attacks, so you get 2 attacks, you could do those attacks for anything you have available to you.
Okay.
So a lot of times somebody has one weapon in their hand and they attack twice with it, and it's very simple and straightforward. But just like you could attack once and then you could do a shove attack or a trip attack or a grapple, or you could do that for both attacks. If you have access to multiple attack types, where like if you shapeshift into a bear and they have claw, that's an attack type. If they have multi-attack, that is not the attack option. That's where it gets messy.
Gotcha.
You can't
All
do
right.
that. Yeah. But if so, you have your extra attacks, so you get 2 attacks per attack action. You take the attack action. You punch once with your astral fists, which I guess would be off the back of your bear because it's neat. I don't know. And then you claw with the bear. And then that satisfies the martial arts things where when you take the attack action with an unarmed strike or a monk weapon on your turn, you can make one unarmed strike as bonus action.
Okay, I see that. And then
that's actually, you're totally right. We finally have something you can do monk druid wild shape, but it is in that kind of weird valley of it's not great. It just kind of works
because you're falling behind on key. Your martial arts die, which is your unarmed strikes, don't go up, and your wild shape's going to be falling behind as well. And something we always say is always feels like your wild shape, like the maximum you could go into, always feels like it's just keeping up, and falling behind on that kind of sucks. And I don't know if it's worth it to be able to get, that extra bonus attack.
Worth it, I feel like it's a difficult conversation to have because
it's true.
It's cool. At the end of the day, yeah, if it's cool and you think it's fun, just because your damage dice aren't higher than the fighter who went with Great Weapon Master and is, the damage dealer, that's okay. Not having the key, I think, is a big hindrance because that's what lets you do the cool stuff. And that's hard to argue with. But saying that was like, oh, well, the damage doesn't really work out to be great. It's like, well, I don't really care. I want to have my fursona just strike out across the entire battlefield. And yes, this is the fursona class. I'm coining it. It's the fact that it's the Circle of the Moon and the Astral Self. 100%.
He's absolutely right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But this is how you can play it out. And I think something that is nice too is when you're wild shaped, your unarmored defense actually does transfer over, doesn't it?
Yep.
So if your dex is good for the wild shape you change into, your AC is generally going to be a lot higher, which does immediately benefit the Moon Druid, who is usually transforming into creatures with decent dex. You keep your wisdom modifier, which is probably going to be like a +4 or something, and end up with an AC that's much higher, making you tankier from just not getting hit as often.
Or if you switch into something that does have its own natural AC that's higher, you could pick. You could choose your source of AC, which is cool. And then a lot of the other stuff monk stuff does work well wild shaped. Not being able to get past the martial arts feature of it has always been like the big holdup of like, all right, we can't, it's not worth it. It's a wild shape as a monk multi-class. But since you could get past that, Like you could flurry of blows, so immediately after you take the attack action, which you could do a wild shape, as we just talked about. Patient defense, step of the wind, perfectly fine to do wild shape. Unarmored movement still works. So like you often have an increased speed from what you're shaping into, or at least you definitely can, and it's going to be even higher because unarmored movement will still. My understanding should still increase the speed. Like you take the new
Yeah.
thing's speed, but this does not say your speed now is 40 feet or 50 feet. It says your speed
plus.
increases by 10, then 15, 20, and so on. Deflect missiles, best I could tell.
Oh,
You could do that. So it'd be a big old brown bear deflecting missiles and throwing them back with your paws.
You don't even have to use your paws. You can use your astral arms to just like grab the arrows and toss them back.
Yeah. And for flavor of that, though, I think if you wild shape, the arms should morph into whatever you're into. So they're like extra bear arms off.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So you can use reaction to deflect or catch the missile when you're hit by a ranged weapon attack. Like that's it. There's no like. So you need a free hand or whatever. I don't think
even
so.
if you did, I mean, you've got a free paw, so it's fine. Like,
right.
If a DM argued against that,
yeah.
Throwing it back maybe, but like just deflecting it means you can hit it away.
Right. Yeah, I always kind of picture it as like deflecting it. It's not so much like you're catching it. It's more like straight palm and like you get it at a glance so it shoots back off. And so totally you could do it with like a paw.
Yeah.
Do it with like a tail if you're something that has like a big like into a big cat. Just like whips it with its tail and it shoots back. That'd be cool as hell.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's what I keep coming back to for this multi-class. It's like, yeah, I can sit here and tell you why it's not going to be the strongest class you've ever played, but I'm going to spend 3 times as long telling you why you should play it anyways, because it's so cool. And it's such a unique flavor that it takes the Moon Druid and what people like about the Moon Druid and says, and what if you added karate to it? Like all the old Kung Fu movies, it's Kung Fu Panda.
Right.
The classic karate movie.
Yeah, the classic karate movie. I probably shouldn't have said those in the same sentence. Thank you, Will, for always keeping me in check and reminding me that I'm a big dummy. But
is amazing. It is way better than it has any business being. Like on paper, it's like, oh, okay. And then you watch like, oh, okay, that's actually pretty solid. Maybe I've seen it too much.
Oh my God.
My son really likes that movie, so maybe I've seen it too much and I'm like...
You've been conditioned.
Yeah, I've been conditioned.
But I am now imagining a panda bouncing an arrow off of its belly.
Oh, perfect.
And it's goofy, and it probably works best if you're playing like a game that starts at a higher level. But that said, there's something that, and I know, Will, get your cringe ready, because I'm about to say some cringy shit. All right. I think it's totally fine that this is a multi-class that takes a little bit longer to be valid and fully shine, because both of these classes really fit that theme. A druid is slow growing, a monk is patient, and the idea that you're not going to be worthwhile until level 10 fits. And I'm okay with it. And it's like, everyone's like, you're kind of lagging behind, and you're like, I'm just growing into something, and when I emerge, you'll understand. And it's like, okay, well, you're kind of just doing 2d6 damage every turn, so could you pick it up? And you're like, in a couple levels, yes. I'll get there.
And then you emerge as a panda, deflecting arrows off its belly.
Right.
With extra panda arms off its back, punching things 10 feet away.
And everyone's like, okay, yeah, you're right. That was worth it. You did it.
Yeah. And it just... For the sake of thoroughness, all of the other core monk features also work well wild shape. Slow fall, extra attack, stunning strike, key empowered strikes, evasion, stillness of mind, purity of body, diamond soul, timeless body, empty body. I mean, you're getting really high at this point, so it's probably not going to come to a multi-class, but they all work well wild shaped.
I will interject that they also all kind of scale with level or are garbage. Also, Tongue of Sun and Moon probably doesn't work. For
Tongue of Sun and Moon?
I did skip that one, yes. You could, well, no, you could understand all spoken languages, so that would still work.
That half of it.
Okay, more of any creature that can understand the language can understand what you say. I mean, I don't know.
Why wouldn't that work?
That actually...
Because the languages are dash. It's not like I speak bear.
No, I don't care. First off, that's a ribbon ability, so we're gonna let it fly.
Yeah,
Right.
If you are wild shaped into a bear, great. You can now talk as a bear and people understand
Yeah,
you.
it says, moreover, any creature that can understand a language can understand
Yes.
what you say.
Not your
It
language.
does not
You don't
say
have to speak a language.
Yeah.
Say's doing a lot of heavy lifting there. All right. I mean, I'm not gonna stand up for it. What I will stand up for, though, is unarmored movement improvement is a lot cooler when you're a bear.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what climbing up walls, running 20 feet. I mean, that's at level 20
yeah, I
by
skipped
that
over
point.
that. Yeah, that could that's a ninth level. Yeah, you get an ability to move along vertical surfaces and across liquids on your turn without
Yes.
falling during your move. Yeah, again, you can do that wild shapes.
Oh, but you're not going to be very, very good in combat. I don't care. I don't care. I'm running
Yeah,
up the wall.
we've
as a
had this
bear.
conversation, and it's a pretty well established fact that the speed is super cool, but it's not very good. And I gotta say, having played a monk at relatively high levels, it's super fun to just run all over the place. It's not very good, but it's extremely satisfying.
It's one of those limiters that just once it's removed though, it's just I don't know, it's nice. Like I played a lower level game and a new player was playing as a monk, and literally the first turn every single person had to like dash to get anywhere that was even the least bit worthwhile. And I was like, "Oh yeah, since you're a monk, you can get to here if you want to use, your entire turn for it, or you can get to here if you just want to spend a key point, and then you can do everything else that you want to do." And they were like, "What? I can just do that?" Like, yes, you can move wherever you want. I don't care that you're level 5. You've got crazy good movement. I don't know. I think it comes up a lot personally. I mean, we saw that with the last campaign we played and the Tabaxi Embers, who was able to sprint across the battlefield at ridiculous lengths. And it was really helpful a
Yeah,
lot
it
of the
came up
time.
a lot. Like a lot.
So yeah, I'm gonna say that an extra 15 movement is fantastic. I mean, that's at level 6 as well, so not so high up there.
And that's another issue. Like we mentioned that, like, okay, so you're a bear, 40 feet plus whatever you get with monk, but the monk speed does scale, so you are slowing down that. And it just kind of keeps looping back that so much is based off of a class level.
It's true.
It's just kind of, it is a little disappointing to look at sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't argue with that.
This is almost one where I'd want to like alternate every other level. Take monk level, druid level, monk level, druid level, monk level, druid level. Ideally, you're not starting at 1, so you could kind of come in, at least with the different abilities online. But they really both do need a scale. Like
Mhm.
if you trying to go that like way of the astral self in a moon druid, I don't think you want to just dip one or the other.
No, I mean, you basically need see, now that's difficult because when you're going as a martial and expecting to do melee combat, it's super important to get to your extra attack. You need to get to level 5 as early as possible, or you really start to feel like you fall behind.
That's true.
So then if you're trying to throw in wild shaping into that, it's like, maybe you took a 2-level holdout, so at level 7 you're getting your extra attack. That's probably fine, but your wild shape's going to suck for the next 3 levels or so. Now, okay, bear with me for a second. Pun not intended. It's okay if you're not wild shaping in combat. Most druids don't wild shape in combat. For Circle of the Moon, obviously,
that needs
it's
a big
major
asterisk.
thing. For Circle of the Moon, it's a big thing. But
and
for
and the new ones kind of.
But they have their
it's just
own
different.
wild shape. Yeah.
Right.
But
So you're
turning
not
into an
wild
animal
shaping.
is not extremely integral to the druid experience. Having a couple of extra spells as a monk alone is good. Monks don't get spells at all. So adding that aspect to your character is beneficial. In the same way that I'll argue a barbarian wizard is good with a 2-level dip into wizard, a monk druid is good with a 2-level dip into druid, because you get your spells, in that case just first level spells. Nothing wild, but you get a couple of things, a couple of tools, and you get Wild Shape as well, which has out of combat utility.
Right. Yeah, and you would be challenged going into like challenger. 1/2 things are lower, so nothing. I'm blanking on what it starts at, but yeah, nothing crazy. But yeah, a lot of out of combat, a lot of scouting, espionage, sneaking you could do with a non-combat wild shape for sure. Challenge rating 1/4.
Yep, that's it. So I mean, it's probably the way that I would do this if I was starting at level 1 is I would just go 5 levels of monk, maybe up to 6 levels, because level 6 of monk gets
A
you
5's a
your
good
second.
stopping point.
It depends on your subclass.
Yeah.
Because at 6th level you get key empowered strikes, which is very useful, and then the monastic tradition feature. So again, just depends. Way of the Astral Self, I don't think 6 levels even necessary. I wouldn't bother with it unless I wanted more key points.
Right.
I
Oh, the
hate that
Visage.
ability.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Visage, where it's like, oh, you get 120 feet dark vision. Thanks. Really glad
Right.
I went into this class.
Sound angry.
I am, because it's whatever. Go check out our
So
Astral
where we got
Self episode.
So 5th level monk, it gets you the extra attack and
Mhm.
stunning strike, which you could absolutely do well wild shapes.
Yep.
And your martial arts die goes up from a 1d4 to a 1d6.
Yes.
Which is so
Super
5th
important.
for a monk is a big power jump. And then it stays at 1d6 all the way to 11th. So unless the campaign starts really getting up there, you're not like necessarily falling behind because your martial arts die isn't growing at that point.
Yeah, the
You know,
only way that
if
you're falling behind there is you're not having as much key as you should have to use flurry of
yeah,
blows more often.
right. Yeah, if you do go that route of trying to go like combat wild shape, astral self monk, I do agree. Like you get to 5th monk probably right away. If you're starting at level 1. And you could easily work that into your character. Like you have
Mhm.
that nature bent to your monastic order and tradition, and you have this real affinity with animals that you play up a lot. Um, and then you start multiclassing into Druid, and Wild Shape comes online, and you could really play that out as this cool arc for your character.
Right. And it's one of those things where it's like you separate the concept of the individual classes and instead you say that your character is part of this monastic tradition, whatever it is, or temple, I don't know, however you want to describe it, that is nature focused. And it's not that you're becoming a druid, it's that this is what happens when you get to this level, and that I use as an abstract term. When you get to this level of, I don't know, focus or whatever, in your temple, you start to get powers that look pretty druidy.
Right.
That's fine, like it doesn't need to be, oh, I then went and I studied in this druid circle for 10 years and that's how I got my multi-class. It's like, no, the seed was planted way earlier, and this is just how it shows.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, the first couple levels, sure, you might not be wild shaping much. It is nice that you at least get the option of doing for wild shape with the Circle of Moon either an action or a bonus action to wild shape. I actually feel like most of the time you'd be doing it as an action, just because monks have so many other things they can do with their bonus action. Um,
Right.
Actually, if you want to do the Astral Self specifically, first turn is using your action to wild shape and then bonus action to get your arms out,
Right.
which is like a really cool transformation sequence. As you like cannonball in because you want to get as many people around as possible.
Right.
And
Yeah,
you
Astral
know
Self has the thing. When you summon the Astral Arms, there's like kind of like this force explosion and things have to make a save or take some damage.
right, yeah, two martial arts die is worth, which I mean makes your first turn feel a little less wasted, as it often can when you're transforming for a turn.
Right. Yeah. And here's another thing to in favor of this. Remember with circle forms, if you do combat wild shape, then you get circle forms, which allows you to transform into higher challenge rating beasts.
Hmm.
When you take it at level 2, you could go to challenge rating 1. And then it does not go up to challenge rating 2 until 6. There's no increase in that. So you will be a bit behind, but it's not like we're talking every single level is like going up a challenge rating
Sure.
or something like that. It goes up in chunks. And so you're not really falling that far behind, just like up here, Druid's wild shape.
Yeah, that's one that I definitely have to feel it out, because it's often said that the first 5 levels of Circle of the Moon are extremely powerful. So I wonder if you're mixing it, if it just kind of feels more middling in an all right way.
Yeah,
But
I think that's how that would work out.
that one's hard to theory craft.
Right.
Okay, so another combination here. And I'm actually still going to use the Astral Self. We'll stick on that so we don't have to go over mechanics again. But I do love Astral Self and Circle of Spores for the same reason that Circle of Spores was awesome last time. When you
Right.
spore up with your wild shape. At level 2 for the Circle of Spores, you get your Symbiotic Entity feature, which allows you to use a wild shape to awaken your spores instead of transforming into a beast. You gain 4 temp HP for each level you have in the class, which probably isn't going to be a ton to start, but again, this is the long con on this class. And when you deal your Halo of Spores damage, you roll a damage die a second time, which just means if something comes within 10 feet of you, you force a con save, and they'd take 2d4 damage. Nothing wild, but your melee weapon attacks deal an extra 1d6 necrotic damage to any target they hit. So as a monk, that means the potential for an additional 4d6 damage every single turn if you're using your flurry of blows.
Right. And just to clarify, an unarmed strike is a melee weapon attack. That's made really clear in the player handbook. It blatantly says it. So,
I'm sure you are putting it up on the screen right now if you want to read the 3 paragraphs of text.
right.
It's there. We promise.
Yeah.
So that, of course, makes you a little bit tankier. It's not an overwhelming amount of temp HP at low levels, but as you start to get into that level 10 and higher range and you're getting 20 temp HP, it can be really good. Puts you in place for a really good couple of turns as you deal that extra damage. Also, it's super cool. That's just kind of one thing I can't get away from, is I just love the idea of your spores and your astral self being combined, and it makes me think of a real hippy dippy type character, who it's like, it's gonna sound more funny, but I think it can be played serious. Where if you just lean into the psychedelics aspect, you have a character who found some mushrooms or has this specific type of mushroom. Heck, they cultivated it themselves. And maybe they start off as they are just kind of they're a druggie, and they find this way to literally astral project and see their astral self and get in tune with it. And yeah, it's kind of played up as like a joke at first, but as time goes on, as they become more in tune with it and they realize all of this power that they have and that they've gained from this, there's so many plot hooks you can have. I mean, the idea that, one, why do these mushrooms affect them in this way? Two, there's the chance of the DM being like, hey, we're going to go to the astral sea and you're going to meet your astral self. And they're like, holy shit, I've been tripping this entire time and now I get to actually meet other me. This is
and he's
awesome.
Gonna beat your ass.
Quit doing drugs, nerd.
What the hell is this multiclass? What are you doing to my body?
So I mean, yeah, there's like this big overlap, say, with psychedelics, and astral projecting is like one of it. I mean, it's however you want to say it. It's not like the concept of the astral sea is particularly a thing. It doesn't actually exist. Sorry, people, drug friends. It's just your brain on drugs. You're just on drugs. But in D&D, it's real, so we can make it real.
Honestly, this sounds like a Marvel hero, like a modern Marvel hero origin story.
Took a bunch of drugs and actually became a superhero. Yeah. And to say, I think it still could be a serious character by starting off as one of those, like, the concept is funny, but if you play out the inevitable outcome of it, it's like you have this character who's kind of a screw up or just doesn't really care about doesn't care about these powers. They're like, yeah, I guess I have powers. It's cool. I mostly use it to fund my.
No, I'm just using
What?
the astral arms to light the bong. Just like get one of the huge novelty ones. And
It'd be pretty convenient in that regard. But yeah, I mean, they're kind of drifting more or less. And I think that through these powers, through the responsibility they gain, they become functioning drug addicts, but functioning regardless.
It's kind of cool. All right, now it's time for my strafing run on why this sucks.
Okay.
It's an action to spore up. That sucks.
Yeah.
Bonus action to arms. Okay. And then those temporary hit points, which we already established are not going to be great with the multiclass. As soon as those get blasted down, they're gone and you're done. You're donezo. And
your spores are done. The astral part's still up.
Yeah. So any benefit you had is gone. And the 1d6 is really great, but you just have to be super careful with it and make sure that you don't do, like we were saying, you don't cannonball into them. You have to lose that, because if you cannonball with no actions, they're going to blast off your spores in one round and you're not going to get those d6s.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
And maybe, you do play it more defensively so that you can keep those spores. I guess that's kind of up to you if you want to Nova it, so to speak, or if you want to use patient defense to take the dodge action, and hey, now your spores last a little bit longer and you get to be more consistent with it. That is going to be very limited by your key points, of course, which at most you'll have, if we're talking about a 5-level play into monk, it takes 1 to go into your astral form, and then you've got 4 left to mess around with. Really hope the combat's over in 2 rounds, because I'm going to burn through those. But it does get, I think, pretty strong at the higher levels, but you're waiting until higher levels, and that's just hard to justify.
Right. Though to play defensively, a monk could definitely do that. With being able to disengage as a bonus action, take the dodge as a bonus action, but you are blown through your key.
Yes.
Which kind of sucks.
Yeah, kind of its own problem in my opinion.
Right. I think the 2 new Druid subclasses that we're talking about, Circle Stars and Circle of Wildfire. I want to make Circle of Wildfire work because I like that idea. Like, you're this fire monk with a wildfire spirit you fight alongside with. But it takes your bonus action to command it. And as we've said, monks are so bonus action heavy. Having a competing thing for your bonus action is going to really suck and keep both sides down.
100%.
Yeah. Circle of Stars doesn't necessarily have to be. Like, you get the guidance cantrip, guiding bolt, and you can cast it for free. So that's fine. Like, no reason you couldn't take advantage of that as a monk. And then the main thing is Starry Form. That does take a bonus action to put it on. But then it depends which one you take. You can take Archer, Chalice, or Dragon. Archer's another problematic one. You could spend a bonus action on your turn to shoot something for radiant damage for 1d8 plus your wisdom modifier. And so again, that's your bonus action competing. Chalice is probably not great for a monk, where if you're regaining hit points, you do 1d8 plus your wisdom additional. That's really minimal. Dragon could be good though. So that's one possible concern with this is Druids have a lot of concentration spells. Monks are basically melee only characters, and you have to have dexterity and wisdom decently high. Your con's probably not going to be crazy. Passing your concentration checks is a concern. With Dragon, if you have it up, when you make an intelligence or wisdom check or a constitution saving throw to maintain concentration, you can treat a roll of 9 or lower as a 10, which is amazing for keeping concentration, because 10's often what the DC's at.
No,
so that does have its benefits.
Point. Yeah, and that's even just a 2-level dip, and I think you're getting a pretty great use out of that class and out of that dip. Now, that said, Druid spells, you do need to be a little bit careful, because a lot of them are either you use your action every turn, in which case you're like, why am I even a monk?
Right.
Or you're using your bonus action every turn, and you're like, why am I even a monk? So there are Druid spells that are concentration, they're more battlefield control, and they don't require you to use your action or bonus action. But that's just something in general for this multiclass that you kind of need to be careful about, is you're not going to be the Druid that's casting Call Lightning, which means you're not going to be doing the damage that Druids can potentially do, but there are still a lot of spells out there that you can use that would benefit greatly from this.
Right.
Any of the battlefield control ones, just, that you cast and keep, you want to keep them up, you're going to. You could literally cast Fairy Fire, which is a 1st level spell, and get tons of benefit out of being able to hold that for the entire combat.
Right. Yeah, just a 2-level dip. Like Starry Form doesn't have a limit. You can just keep doing it,
Hmm.
which is great. So that's like universally going to be useful. And that dragon aspect of it, not like it doesn't need to scale. It's good from the beginning to the end of the game.
Yeah, I guess officially it gets a little bit worse at higher levels because things have the potential to do
Bigger
super high
damage,
damage,
sure.
but that's just something you have to deal with regardless.
Right.
One thing that's, I'll say, semi-related, maybe not at all, but I just remembered it, is that monks get evasion at 7th level, and a lot of what we're talking about is not taking monks up to 7th level. Druids get a little spell called Absorb Elements, which is a
Yeah.
1st level spell and takes up your reaction and lets you gain resistance to an elemental damage type, which most dexterity saving throws are. Let me actually pull up the specifics. I don't think it mentions anything about.
What's the question about it?
The question was if it has anything to do with dexterity saving throws, but it
Nope.
does not. Yeah, so it's just
When you take a triggering damage type and it lists them.
right. So whatever that is, you can take it, and then you can deal additional damage when you make a melee attack. So that synergizes well with monks.
No, it
also.
doesn't. Derailment time.
Oh,
You know, it would
boy.
be super cool, man. Way of the Four Elements class feature absorb elements that didn't suck on the melee return stuff. So you absorb the elements, and then all your next attacks do that. Because the absorb elements, it's only one more. It's like
Right.
this is like the greatest spell in the 1st level list. And then it has this rider where you do more damage that's just garbage. 1d6 of the triggering type against something that's probably immune to it.
that's a
Yeah.
bit of a stretch.
I wouldn't say it makes the spell garbage. As you said, it is
No,
one of the best
I'm
first
saying
level
that
spells.
is just it's just a garbage add-on that's just disappointing and pointless.
I think it's a little balancing
thematic.
for a 1st level spell.
I see it
Because
as
even
just a thematic thing. Like you're
Right.
absorbing the elements in and then you punch it back.
And then, of
it doesn't
course,
bother me.
the people who get the absorb element spell are probably not going to be hitting anything. It's
Right. Oh, yeah,
Unless-
sure.
Unless you're a monk druid
Unless you're a monk
multiclass, in which case, yeah, this works out pretty well, and you don't need to get to 7th level. You don't feel like you're missing out on that 7th level feature of evasion because 95% of what you're making a dexterity saving throw on can be avoided with absorb elements. So as long as you have that around, you're still going to get your resistance. It's not the exact same. Don't get me wrong. I know evasion is if you pass, you take 0 damage, but it hurts a lot less, both from a in character and out of character standpoint.
Right.
When you're absorbing it, and yeah, okay, you get an extra d6 damage back. That part's just a little rider to me. That's the little bonus on top. Be like being mad. It's like, oh, shield only gives me +5 to my AC. It doesn't also let me do force damage back to them. Chill. All right, it's already a good spell.
That's such a great house rule for shield. All the damage you would have taken is reflected back as force damage.
Still 1st level.
Still first level.
First level.
Yeah.
Another character concept is, and this isn't going to be the strongest mechanically, but I think it'd be neat, is Circle of Shepherd and Way of Mercy. So Way of Mercy is very much like it's played up as like a plague doctor in a lot of ways, but Circle of Shepherd is played up about the acknowledgement of life and how life has purpose and all of that. And I think Way of Mercy combining that would be like a Circle of Life monk. Like everything lives, but also death is a part of everything, and kind of that maintaining balance aspect. From a mechanical standpoint, the Way of Mercy does get the healing hands and harm hands, which takes some key points. So I think this one would be more of a focus on monk, probably for most of the way. I'd do like almost all monk, and then even a 2-level dip in druid could be cool, just for, again, some of those early spells, absorb elements for one. But also the Circle of Shepherd gets their spirit totem, which can be pretty neat, offering up some potentially useful buffs. I'm not going to say it's the strongest druid subclass, The buffs that you can give with your spirit totem are once per long rest. It probably should be more frequent than that, but that's what it is. You can give some temp HP equal to 5 plus your druid level, which just in general is some nice additional temp HP. And then advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws, which can work really well if you have a fighter in your party or a barbarian, somebody who's trying to grapple. That's party dependent, but it can be useful. Or we've got the Hawk Spirit. When a creature makes an attack roll against a target in your spirit's aura, you can use your reaction to grant advantage to that attack roll. So giving advantage once a turn, also just kind of nice. And then the Unicorn Spirit's really situational, but it's there. It's if you and your allies gain advantage on all ability checks made to detect creatures in the spirit's aura. In addition, if you cast a spell using a spell slot that restores HP to any creature inside or outside the aura, each creature of your choice in the aura also regains HP equal to your druid level. So probably not going to be using that one that much unless you get healing word, I guess. It's probably the only one that would apply here at like a low level druid dip. So anyways, I just like that concept of focusing on like the circle of life, and you can sing the Lion King song or something.
Sure. Mechanically, I do think Way of Mercy is way too key heavy. Like, I think if you're just a pure druid and play Way of Mercy, I think it uses too many key points. So multiclassing out of that one.
I say a 2-level dip though into druid, and that's not that much.
I mean, sure.
At some point, I mean, it's more about how many short rests you get in a day than how many key points you have.
Yeah,
which
that's true.
I mean, it's just saying if you're like, oh, I've got 5 versus I have 7 key points, it's like, okay, I also can cast spells and turn into animals. So
Right,
it's a trade-off, but I don't think your character is going to be totally decimated by it. If you tried to do an even split, yes, you're going to have trouble. Or just like stopping at 5, 100% agree.
Right. The only other new monk subclass we haven't talked about in terms of druid mods class is Way of the Ascended Dragon.
Yes.
I don't think it's any good. I don't think druid saves this in any way. We had a whole episode on this, which top of the screen, where we're not huge fans of it. And I just don't see the druid coming in and saving this in any way. Like, it's just, you're just gonna have too mediocre things going on.
Yeah, just doing a quick look around.
Something. Yeah.
No, I don't see anything that really helps. At 6th level, you get that like wings for a turn. It's like I would rather just be able to wild shape into something with wings if it was that important. No, there's no real benefit or overlap.
Yeah. Yeah, I have nothing else on this one.
So overall, we agree. Fantastic multiclass. No issues. No traps. It is easily one of the most technically dense multiclasses. You need to understand the rules so well in order to not make a just crappy character. I mean, it's just true. If you take druid spells that use your action, you're going to be like, oh, I can't do anything as a monk. Why did I do this? If you mess up the level order, you're going to feel useless. Don't care. Kung Fu Panda.
Right. With Astral Panda Paws.
Yeah. And that alone, if you can figure it out.
And that's the only way Kung Fu Panda really works.
Is with Astral Paws?
Yeah, that's what I was saying at the beginning, because otherwise they're not unarmed strikes or monk weapons, and so all the martial arts stuff falls away.
Right. I mean, you can still just take unarmed strikes as a wild shape. Nothing stops you. Like a bear can take an unarmed strike. There's nothing against that.
That's true, and so it would still follow the monk. Wouldn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
It just wouldn't be as great of a lineup because, you can focus all on wisdom and do all of that stuff. So no, I think it can still work okay if you're doing another monk subclass.
Right.
How does a bear make an unarmed strike?
Backhand.
Flat paw. Or that.
It's still the...
There's no claws. I think they had a claw and a bite, so they just don't claw or bite.
Yeah, they kick. They, I don't know, headbutt.
Yeah, they slam.
I like how you're like giving me this weird look, like, oh, how does that work? Because they're a monk.
Right.
They've been trained. This this is the
Yeah,
most
yeah. This isn't like
martially
a
trained
wild
bear.
bear in the woods hunting for berries. This is like a highly trained martial arts student or master transformed into a bear and maintain its own personality, intelligence, and everything. It's like, yeah, it can manage to unarmed strike. It's fine.
When you train martial arts, you train your body. When you
Yeah.
replace your body with a bear's body, you suddenly
It-
lose all your martial arts training. So
No,
you
you
have
don't.
to
It's
train
magic. It
as
just automatically
no,
rewires.
You have to
It's fine.
train as a bear in addition to as a human. That's why you're like half as good as a regular monk.
Gotta spend all my time training as a bear. It's like, what if we need a tiger? Oh shit.
Got to train my bear backhands, my tiger backhands.
Oh man. Well, luckily you don't have to make any split like that when you're using any of our discount codes, like the one for Metallic Dice Games. You just get 10% off every time. No weird 5% off if you're getting, dice, or 5% off if you're getting dice accessories. 10% off the entire website. It's as easy as putting in the code MM10. It's lovely. And if you liked what you listened to, then you can go ahead and subscribe on YouTube. Leave us a comment. Let us know how you would build a monk druid, because it's, as I said, kind of complicated. So I'm sure there's some fun builds that we missed. Please let us know. And yeah, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you, as usual, to our Patreon subscribers: Ed G, Moto Wait, Brian H, Craig A, Isaac M, Jeff W, Luca L, Star Shinobi, Vincent M, Bob F, Joe P, Rick D, Sentinel D20, Adam A, and Rob K. We appreciate you very, very much.
And as always, thanks for watching.